Hi, everybody. This is Saad for the Saad Truth. Some of you may have heard of the recent U.S. Supreme Court case regarding the Abercrombie and Fitch hijab situation, where a Muslim prospective employee was apparently denied a job because of her headscarf. And this was ultimately argued in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, and they ruled in her favor 8-1 that she should not have been uh, refused a job on the basis of her attire. And I've discussed this case in an article that I wrote for Psychology Today and also Huffington Post. And I also appeared on the David Pakman show to discuss it. Now, in having this conversation, a few people weighed in, whereby they said, well, these attires are really freely worn by women or by most women. It's not a sign of oppression, and so on and so forth. And this is something that I have discussed in the past with various people, and certainly a lot of Western apologists will make that claim that yes, sure, some women are forced to wear these attires, but for many of them, it's an absolute sign of devotion to God. It's a, a a signal of modesty, and so on. Now, of course, this is absolutely true. Many women do freely wear these attires, and that's incontestable. On the other hand, though, it would be truly extraordinary to claim that most women are not forced to wear it. So, to construct an argument in support of the fact that for many, many women it is indeed a forced choice, I have looked for these classic images that some of you may have seen floating around the internet, where it's a pre-post situation where you sort of compare how women are dressed in various countries pre some Islamic revival and then post it. So if you look at the images that are going to come up now, in the first instance, we have the photo of the graduating class from Cairo University going back to the late 50s, I think it's 1959, and all the way to a more recent photo. And what you basically see is that the number of hijabs and very modest attires are profoundly more pervasive now than they were in earlier uh, eras. Now, if we move to, say, Iranian anchor women and how they're dressed when they appear on TV, so immediately prior to the Islamic Revolution of 1975 and 79, so if you look at the lady from 1978, well, she's dressed in a very modern Western style, and then as the Islamic Revolution becomes more profoundly embedded within the ethos of Iranian society, then the dress becomes a lot more conservative. And then if we look at a pre-post set of photos from Afghanistan, you look at some women in Kabul from several decades ago, and then you look at how some women are dressed today in Afghanistan, well, we clearly see a difference. Now, it would be quite extraordinary for somebody to claim that magically, coincidentally, millions of women have suddenly chosen freely to go from dressing in very free and Western ways to dressing in more modest, religiously sanctioned ways. So again, does this imply that every single woman who decides to dress in modest attire is being forced to do so? Of course not. But does it imply that there are endless, innumerable women that would experience a very severe set of consequences if they do not adhere to the standards that are imposed by a revival of religious fervor? It would be crazy to argue otherwise. So, to those who repeatedly ape the idea that it's a free choice, this is an example of empowerment, so example of piety. I mean, yes, to some extent, but no to millions of women. And to deny that reality is to really spit in the face of those women who are being denied their most basic freedoms, such as whether they can dress uh, in style A or B. Finally, I'd like to point out, so the last set of images that you're seeing are several women dressed in the niqab versus women at a bikini contest. I've written an article actually about this in Psychology Today a few years ago, where I was arguing the truly hallucinatory position of Western feminists when it comes to these two sets of attires. So, according to the profoundly delusional position of some radical feminists, the niqab and the burqa are actually liberating, right? You're sitting down for this? They're liberating because ultimately they avert the male gaze. On the other hand, the bikini is profoundly oppressive because ultimately it triggers the male gaze, which, as we of course all know, is nothing but a form of visual rape. So again, this is where you realize that some movements are truly ideological in their bent and are pretty much fully decoupled from reason, when you can actually argue that a woman who is dressed in an attire where her complete identity is removed from the public sphere is actually more liberated, at least in the context of her attire, than a woman who has the freedom to dress in any way that she wants. So I hope that you've enjoyed this clip. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Spread the word and have a great week, everyone. Cheers. Ciao.